So our first speaker of the night is Ben Walters, and he is the GM at Hopper. He does not do social media. As you can see there, you're not going to be able to tag him. But here are 3 fun facts about Ben that you probably don't know. So last week, Ben bought a manual car, and he has never driven manual before. He is a quarter Jamaican, and he's gotten more tickets on his bicycle than in a vehicle. That might just change since you're going to be driving manual for the first time. Ben, come on up here and share your fuck up.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's funny, just sitting there, I realized this is my first time being on a stage not introducing myself as CEO and co-founder of Feedback/Gravy, but obviously that's why I'm here tonight. So, yeah, the journey started when my cousin and eventual co-founder Josh came to me in early 2017 with this idea he had seen over in Europe. It was an app that helped restaurants sell off excess food at the end of the day. Restaurants got to turn in sunk cost into incremental revenue. Customers like ourselves got to buy great food for less, and together we reduced food waste. I was so excited about this idea that I quit my job in management consulting and jumped feet first. Obviously, we had absolutely no idea what we were doing, but we were lucky that we quickly assembled a pretty cross-functional and complementary team. That's the first 4 of us there. And we started quickly building an app, acquiring customers, and partnering with restaurants. And the crazy part was that it actually started to work. And so in our first 11 months since launching, we partnered with 250 restaurants. We had 35,000 users or 3,000 monthly, paying active users. We were doing $70,000 a month in sales. We were growing 30% month over month. We even raised a little pre-seed round, and things felt like they were going really, really well. But there was one major problem, and that was our business model. No one really talks a lot about business models. It seems to be the world of growth right now, grab market share, figure out how to make money later. But the more I dug into the numbers, the scarier that I actually saw the picture being. And so even if we were at the peak of our success, I didn't like what I saw, and we decided to make a very drastic move and pivot the entire business. The rationale at that point was quite simple. We had first learned a lot about starting a company. We'd also intimately started to understand the restaurant industry. And what we saw was this trend happening where orders were all of a sudden moving from this offline analog world into this digital world with the likes of Ritual, Uber Eats, DoorDash, and all of them. And when we looked at similar parallel industries, the taxi industry, the airline industry, the hotel industry, when they made that same shift from offline to online, the pricing went from static to dynamic. And we felt that the same thing was going to happen to the restaurant industry. So instead of just operating another app and competing with these behemoths, we doubled down on actually building pricing software that we thought was going to power all of these different apps and really empower restaurateurs for this new wave of dynamic pricing. What do you guys think? Sound good? So we were really excited by it. We spoke to investors. They were really excited by it. I spoke to mentors and advisors. They were all really excited by it. And so there we were off on our way. But of course, there was one major problem. The only stakeholder that actually mattered, not investors, not ourselves, not advisors, but restaurants, they wanted nothing to do with this future world of dynamic pricing. And so here we were, a bunch of Patagonia-wearing startup dudes rolling into these businesses, telling them that they were going to see their industry get revolutionized by dynamic pricing, and we were getting laughed out of the room. And so here we were, 1 month, 3 months, and then 6 months down the road, and we had 1 customer for Gravy. 1 customer. Even paying ourselves $2,000 a month, yes, actually $2,000 a month, we were running out of money, and we were running out of money fast. As the leader of our company, I completely derailed us. I lost our vision, and we were completely fucked. And so I decided I needed to be upfront with our shareholders, our investors. And so I wrote them an email explaining the dire state of affairs. And at the very end, I said, hey, guys, we're going to have to look into backup plans. At the time, I honestly had absolutely no idea what those backup plans were. And just a quick tangent here, I think a lot of us in the room, I certainly did, when you hear the word investor, you think of these faceless people sitting in boardrooms, like counting stacks of money. Those are not the investors I'm talking about. The investors in our company were myself, our employees, my parents, my best friend's dad, my brother-in-law, that's probably the worst one, a couple VCs, but these are family and friends and the first two VCs to ever really take a chance on me. Well, anyways, so I went to them, I told them we were in dire state of affairs, and one of them actually offered to introduce me to Hopper. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Hopper, but I remember thinking at the time, Hopper? It's travel, restaurant, I don't get it. Anyways, I jumped on the phone and spent 3 hours talking to Fred Lalonde, Hopper's legendary CEO, and I came off that call completely smitten, feeling like there couldn't have been a better opportunity for us at that time, and the team felt the same way. And sure enough, 6 weeks later, they actually ended up acqui-hiring us. For those of you who don't know what an acqui-hire was, I didn't either 3 months ago, it's the idea of a company buying a team instead of a IP or any sort of tech. So they didn't want the app, they didn't even want this really cool pricing engine we built. They did see value in the team. And so that meant a couple really exciting things. The whole team got offers and exciting packages from Hopper, cool. We had a bunch of debt paid off that we were actually personally guaranteeing, great. But it also meant a couple not so exciting things. First, the $200,000 that the founders had put into the company, a lot of it was mine, was gonna be gone. The options that we had given to our employees to compensate them for their lackluster salaries were worthless. And we were gonna have to go back to our investors and tell them they were likely never going to see their money again. We were gonna try to sell Feedback app and the assets, and still are, for a little bit of money and distribute that to them. But realistically, it was going to amount to pennies on the dollar. So while in some ways, considering the circumstances, this was a really great, exciting outcome, I could not sleep, and I really, really felt like complete shit about it. I remember going to the team and actually saying that I think that we have to walk away from this offer simply to go down with the sinking ship and be martyrs, because it would relieve some of the guilt that I was feeling. We went to war with these investors. They believed in us, and here we were taking the first flight out and leaving them behind, or at least that's how it felt to me. And so I took the offer to them to sort of gauge how they felt about it, and to their credit, they were completely understanding, super supportive, and even looked at the offer, even the VCs, and said, this is something that you really can't pass up. I will forever be indebted to each and every one of them and plan on paying every single one of them back. But yeah, that's how it went. And so that was our story. So yeah, I think there's a lot of people in here that would be better suited to give you all advice, but I'm standing on stage with a mic, so I think that's my job right now. So a couple things. One is, don't let false validation take you astray. Pitch competitions are bullshit. Most accelerators are complete garbage. A lot of investors have no idea what they're talking about, and they're never gonna know your business as intimately as you are. You need to go out and figure out who your customers are and validate with them. Do yourselves a favor, for the entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs, and go read Steve Blank's book, The 4 Steps to the Epiphany. Super dry, very, very valuable. And he will actually talk you through how you need to understand who your actual customers are so that you aren't building a product for yourself. Second, and this is an important one, the only way to let go of your ego so that you can really pursue your dreams is to really fuck up. And so for me, going through this journey meant a lot of really tough conversations. It meant letting go of friends. It meant losing my own money. It meant losing other people's money. But it did gift me with this incredible thing, which is a resiliency to realize that, hey, you can get through anything. And as cliche as it sounds, sometimes you need to fail to realize how unscary failing really is. Third, if you're like me, I would have told you literally 4 or 5 months ago that I was never gonna work for a real company again. I was always gonna start something and be my own boss and yada, yada, yada. And I think that was because I made the false assumption that all companies sort of looked like this. One of the incredible things about the thriving startup ecosystem right now is that there's a new form of company, of culture, of leadership that is brewing. And Shopify is actually a great example of that, being in their office right now. And so for us, we felt like we got really lucky with Hopper, where we found a team that was not only super supportive, but was filled of incredibly amazing, impressive people in every single domain who taught us a lot, still pushed us to take risks, push the envelope, and innovate, and at the same time gave us complete autonomy and flexibility to do our own thing and run a team like I have been trying to run it for the last few years. And so just don't give up if you are looking for that sort of in-between. And last, the other side of the sort of startup ecosystem that I said is a great thing is also very dangerous. This fake it till you make it mentality is one that I personally don't think is a really healthy thing. Amidst our media success, our pitch competition wins, hiring great people, raising a bunch of money, and even our acquisition, as BetaKit called it, it's bullshit as you guys all now know, we failed. Our company failed, period. Like, that's it. And I think right now, in today's day and age, it's really easy to make a really fancy website and slap a bunch of media accolades on the bottom and think that you're really doing something great. And really, that has nothing to do with running a successful, sustainable business. So I do urge all of you to go start a business, and hopefully it's helping the environment or healthcare or education, but that's another conversation. But do go start businesses, but make sure you're not building a hype machine, but you're actually building a sustainable business. And that's it. Thank you.
That was awesome, Ben. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, it's gone.
I
just need some water. It's all good.
Okay. So I was gonna say it's so rare for somebody to actually just like slap on like all the media and like all the hype that they've gotten for their company and just kind of like show the real side of it. So thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you for being so open. And let's jump into some Q&A. So this is your chance to ask Ben some really good questions. We're gonna have a couple mic runners around with mics and bring it to you when you raise your hand. Just one thing to keep in mind, when you ask your question, please keep the question itself brief, just so we can get through as many as possible. And let's kick it off. Who wants to ask the first question?
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. That was great. My question is, how did you manage your mind and the emotions going through all the wild craziness of that whole story?
Well, one, you can't to some degree. Again, it sounds super cliche, wearing the Patagonia and everything, but like I found meditation at a really good time in my life, honestly. It helped a lot. I had an amazing girlfriend, now fiance, who was incredibly supportive. I had a really great support network, which is honestly I was born into more than anything. So I think I just got lucky. But yeah, definitely not easy. Anything else?
At what point did you realize your business was unsalvageable, or there was the point of no return?
Yeah, that's a good question. So with feedback, it was weird because everything was going really well. And the fact that things were going well, and to me, I still didn't believe in the business model, was actually the sign that there was something seriously wrong. If things weren't going well and the business model didn't make sense, then okay, there's something you can tweak there. But that was the sign for feedback. With Gravy, it's really, at the end of the day, customers wanted something else. And so, yeah, you sort of fight because you just keep on fighting, and it's hopefully in your DNA if you're an entrepreneur, because you're going to hear no 10,000 times. But at some point, really when the money is fully running out and you're relying on people to work for no pay for too long, it becomes pretty clear that there's really not a way out.
Thank you for exposing some of the bad things in the ecosystem for innovation. I'm curious, you went and talked about the fact that you have, all of this accolades, and it's like, hey, that's not right. So how would you define success today?
Yeah, I think most of the amazing businesses out there you've never heard of is the truth. I think It's funny. You can look at like Crunchbase does a unicorn list every year where they talk about billion-dollar companies, and I guarantee you that 90% of them none of us have heard of because they're boring, ugly B2B businesses that are just cash-generating machines. And so I think a conversation for another time is like the idea of B Corp and defining companies as more than just shareholder value in dollars and cents. I think we need to start having that conversation in terms of what success means. But as we define corporations today, it is actually making money and having strong unit economics on top of being able to sustain real growth.
What do you think are the key attributes a former entrepreneur can bring to a large corporation? A former entrepreneur with like a failed venture, but also key learnings?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I don't think we realized at the time how quickly we could move by being comfortable with each other and having really tough conversations when they needed to happen. And so we sort of got absorbed by Hopper and the team moved over. And we very quickly realized how quickly we moved. We just moved very quickly. But that is actually working for a company like Hopper that was giving us the freedom to be able to move at our speed, which is, I think, very rare. To me, it's a speed thing. I think companies, the bigger you get, the more fat is in there, and your cadence slows down, and there's fewer releases. And I think that a small scrappy team is both frugal and also just moves a lot quicker than a big company can, and you have to take advantage of that.
Great, so we'll do 2 more questions.
Thank you for that. I was wondering if you could just walk us through kind of the acqui-hiring process.
Sure.
Not something I'm super familiar with in the entrepreneurship space. And just want to know how you kind of negotiated that with Hopper from a team perspective.
Yeah, so same here. One of the reasons, honestly, that I wanted to speak tonight is when we were going through this process, I couldn't find any content online except for like weird, like diving down rabbit hole Quora posts about like in the Valley when companies pay $1 million per engineer, which is not how it works, at least in Toronto, or for us, it didn't work that way. The process is like any negotiation. The first thing I did was made sure that we tried to get another offer for a company to buy us so that we could leverage that in the negotiation. If you have no leverage, you're in a tough spot. We pushed hard for investor consideration, and to them, it was something that just didn't make sense for them as a company to do. And so that was a conversation that was a lot of back and forth. But really, at the end of the day, it comes in many shapes and forms, and I think that's why there's not a lot of content about it. For us, it was like there was the salary negotiation, there was like the stock option plan that they distributed to us as new employees of the company, and then we sort of pushed on the debt side. But it really comes in so many different shapes and forms that there's not really a standard template. Sorry, that's a bad answer, I know, but that's all I got.
Great, last question for Ben.
Hi. I just want to know, at what point did you realize that this was a learning experience and not just something horrible that you're going through?
I was born that way. I always love pain, and I love the upward of a hike because like I know at the end is going to be something good. It always felt like this was the best decision of my life. And I also I geared up for it. I say that I jumped into entrepreneurship feet first. That is true. But it was only when I made the realization that win or lose, this was going to be the best thing that ever happened to me. And I genuinely believed that at every single step of the journey. It doesn't always make it easier in the moment. But I just generally have that outlook. I'm lucky.
Perfect. I think that's a great place to end off on for the Q&A. Ben, thank you so much again for sharing your story.